In this video, we're going to take a look at the concept areas and the sub-concept areas of the standards. I'm back on the New York State Education Department page for the Computer Science and Digital Fluency Learning Standards. Let's take a peek at that image that you see on your screen. You're going to see the 5 key concept areas: impacts of computing, computational thinking, networks and systems design, cybersecurity, and digital literacy. If you scroll down to that first link that you have on the page, we're going to see the PDF that's going to break down the standards. Now, I'm going to scroll down to page 12 to take a peek at the different concept areas. If this is your first time looking at the standards, I highly recommend you take some time and go through those first 11 pages so you can see how they were designed and organized and the important features that were considered when these standards were put together. But for the sake of this video, we're going to drop to page 12 where we're going to look at impacts of computing. For impacts of computing, we're taking a look at the aspects of the world at local, national, and global levels, thinking about how computing has affected our lives. We're thinking about how we understand the impact of these technologies on our society through many lenses, including our personal, social, cultural, accessibility, legal, economic, and ethical lenses. So let's take a look at the 4 sub-concept areas for these standards. The first one is society. So we're thinking about how our human social structures that support the things that we do and how technology has affected them. We're thinking about the influence, we're thinking about the laws, we're thinking about how having technology has shifted the way we work and function as a global society. When we move down to ethics, we have to think about the creation and the use of technology. Is it ethical in the way it's built, in the way that it's used? Does it have any unintended impacts that we have to think about in that design and use? The last 2, accessibility and career paths, each only have one standard, but do cover a very broad area. The first one is accessibility, where we're thinking about not only the design, but the use of technology as far as how it can be used by different individuals. We're thinking about designing things that don't have bias and making sure that it impacts in a positive way the users for whatever the technology happens to be. Finally, we have career paths where we're taking a look at the different career opportunities that are available within impacts of computing or within our society as a whole. So that's impacts of computing. We're going to scroll down to page 13 and we're going to take a look at computational thinking. With computational thinking, we're thinking about problem solving. That's really what computational thinking means, is it's problem solving. We're thinking of it with problem solving with a computer by thinking about how we're going to use these computer science standards. We're thinking about those concepts like algorithms and variables. We're using larger words than maybe use on a regular basis, but I'm sure that you know the concepts of and we'll go through them. But we're thinking about abstraction, decomposition, data analysis, modeling, and simulation. We're thinking about how we define a problem, how we break it down, and how we look for different solutions. Really, algorithms are embedded into all that we do, and we're thinking about how we can communicate and collaborate and promote the development of foundational skills as we're using computational thinking. So, computational thinking is broken down into 4 concept or sub-concept areas. The first one is modeling and simulation. With modeling and simulation, we're looking at the process of how we can represent the information. We want to be able to observe, understand, or simulate it. So, really, anything with modeling and simulation, we're using data to be able to showcase it in a way to either understand something or to make predictions. The next one is data analysis and visualization. Here we're thinking about how we put together the information. So it's us actually creating those graphs and charts and using them to communicate and analyze the information. How are we going to draw conclusions from it? The next one down is the words that I know when I was first learning these standards were kind of big ones for me to understand. So hopefully we can get through them together. Abstraction and decomposition are the next 2 areas. Abstraction really just means we're looking to reduce the complexity of by focusing on the key elements. So think of if you're an English teacher, thinking of the main idea of something. If you're looking at a math problem, you're taking out all the extraneous parts to be able to understand the fundamentals of what you need to be able to solve that problem. When you're looking at something complex like a computer program, we're looking at the ways that we can isolate parts of it, whether it's a routine or a task, that makes it so you can understand that routine in order to kind of find that reduce or find a way to reduce that complexity. When we're looking at decomposition, we're just breaking things down into smaller parts. In computer science world, we might call it debugging. If we're writing an essay, it might be editing. As we're solving a math problem, it might be checking to make sure we didn't make any mistakes. So we're checking our answers. So abstraction reduces complexity. Decomposition is the breaking down of that complex task into smaller parts. And then finally, we have algorithms and programming. Here, with algorithms, we're really thinking about that sequencing of the steps that we need to solve a problem, following the patterns, looking for ways that we can develop an organization for how we can find the answers for something. We might be testing, we might be debugging still, but we're looking for ways to be able to develop a logical system to solve something. Now we're going to move on to networks and systems design. This is a smaller area of the standards and may have a little bit more, you might have a little more difficulty in finding ways that you can embed it into your everyday classroom. But really, we're thinking about how computer systems work. It's broken down into two parts, hardware and software. So we're just thinking about what the parts are and how they operate. And then we have networks in the internet where we're thinking about how data is stored and transferred. So we're thinking about what happens when we send an email or how the internet gets information to us. Moving to cybersecurity, cybersecurity is increasingly more important in the working world. Cybersecurity is broken down into three parts for the standards. We're looking at thinking about how we can protect our data, how we are going to respond if a breach happens, but it's also about cyberbullying and understanding what we do online and the impact it can have. So when we're thinking about cybersecurity, our three sub concepts are risk, safeguards, and response. Risks are thinking about the information that we share online and what we need to do to protect it, and what to do in case something happens. When we move into safeguards, we're thinking about the things that we do to protect our information, like adding in multi-factor authorization by putting passcodes on things. We're talking about those safeguards that we can do. And then response is thinking about what's going to happen if a breach occurs. What are we going to do to make sure that we're protecting ourselves moving forward? As we move into digital literacy, this one also has some components of thinking about our digital footprint and cyberbullying. And we're thinking about how we're going to make sure to use technology in the most effective way. This could be the digital use, how we're going to use that technology in everyday life. So anytime you're touching technology, you're really hitting some of these standards. And then digital citizenship, where we're thinking about how we can empower our learners to use online resources, be able to transfer those skills to new technology, and how we can make sure that our digital footprint is a safe one and a positive one in the way we engage online.